Hey, everyone, welcome. It's Darren. Today we're going to be talking about random file generation. And we've already looked at random number generation. If you haven't seen that video, there's a link in the description. You might want to go watch that first. We're going to be using the random functions throughout this video, especially rand between. So why would you want random data files? And there's really two reasons for that. The first reason you might need to have a random data file is if it's something new and you just don't have any real data yet. So if I'm writing up a spreadsheet or a program in C or anything really, and I need to run some data through it to see if it's actually working, the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I generate some random data to start with. So that's the first reason you might want a random data file. The second reason you might want a random data file is that you do have some data, you've got live data, but for one reason or another, you can't use it. And there's a couple of main reasons why you can't use it. The first reason is, let's say this data is medical data, and you can't really use live medical data to do training or testing in many cases. It's also true of financial data. You can't take real customer accounts and put them up and then use real customer names and do training on it. It's just not ethical. In many cases, it's not legal. Same might be true if you're working with confidential information for any reason, government classified information, for example. You just can't use real data. So in those cases, what you need to do is generate some data that looks real, that acts real, but isn't real. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to go about doing that. So we're going to pick some fairly easy things. Just going to pick some names and addresses here and start with that. And we'll get to a little bit more advanced after that. So where do you find the data? Well, in this case, like I said, I want to start with some names and addresses. And one of the rules that you want to follow when you're working with random data, especially if it's for training purposes, is you don't want people to get lost. So if you're generating some random names, you want to make sure they're names that are familiar to people, that are easy to pronounce. You don't want names that are difficult to pronounce, difficult to remember. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just to ask Google, hey Google, what are the most common names? And if you've ever looked at the Google name lists, you're going to end up with two of them. You're going to wind up with the most common boy names and the most common girl names. And that's okay. We can handle that. So I asked Google, what are the 50 most common boy names? And this is what it gave me. I don't remember what year this was for. These come off birth certificates. So then we'll just copy those and we'll put those into uh, this column over here. And now I want the 50 most common girl names. Okay. Hey Google, what are the most common 50 girl names? Yeah, I'm surprised my phone just didn't pick up that when I called it, but that's okay. And there's the 50 most common girl names. Okay, so now I have the 100 most common names on birth certificates from, I think this was a few years ago. Uh, so that gives me first names. Now I need last names. Well, you just go out to Google and you say, what are the most common, the 100 most common last names in the country? And remember, this is local. If you're doing this in the US, and this data is all US data, if you're doing this in France, these names are going to be different. So just use your local data. You get it the same way. So now I'm ready for last names. So I just asked Google, what are the 100 most popular last names in the US? And it gave me this. And if we look down this list, Smith, Johnson, Williams, Brown, no surprise there. So we'll just copy that list over. And we're going to make another column here. Okay, so addresses. Addresses are a little bit more difficult. So I have a street number and I have a street name. And if you're thinking the number is just going to be a number, I can just use a random number, really. Just pick a reasonable range, pick a random number. So I just need to pick the street name. So again, I asked Google, what are the 100 most popular street names in the US? And you'll see Main Street, Second Street, Third Street, First Street. And that's sort of an interesting one. I don't know if you've ever thought of why there are less first streets than second and third streets. And the reason is that in some towns, they actually had considered Main Street to be First Street. So they went Main Street, Second, Third, and some went Main, First, Second, Third. So there's less first streets than there are second streets. Uh, but now we've got these list of street names. So we'll just copy those and we'll come back over here and make another column for street names. Okay, so I have street names. Now I need to get city, state, and zip code. And I could ask for the 100 most popular city names, but that's going to give me the cities that have the most names for them, probably. So I'll get a lot of Springfield. I'll get a lot of Jonestown or something. Uh, what I really want is the most populous areas. So the way to do that is you actually ask for the most populous zip codes. And that will give you the 100 zip codes that have the most people in them. And uh, then you get the city and state with it. So if we come over here, and this is what I got. Um, El Paso, Texas, 79936 is the most populous zip code. The most people live there in the country, followed by zip code in Los Angeles. Remember, this is not saying El Paso is the biggest city. It's saying this zip code specifically has the most people. El Paso has a bunch of zip codes. So I'm going to copy these three over. Okay. So this is enough to start. And now I have names, addresses, city, state, and zip code. And if that's all I need, that's good. So first thing I want to do is I want to pick a random cell in column one and a random cell in column two. Liam Smith on Main Street in El Paso, Texas would be just fine for one. And if I wanted just 100 random data cells, I could just take this, throw a street number onto all of them, I'd be done. If I want 10,000, that's not going to work. And it's also not terribly random in any case. So what you do instead is you use the indirect function with a rand between function. And let's take a look at how to do that. So it is indirect. And I have a video describing this in more detail down in the description. What indirect does is it lets you specify a cell reference as a formula. If you just use a cell reference, that doesn't let you uh, go randomly. And also using indirect, you can use random numbers. So I want to use indirect a ampersand, which is a concatenation function. It'll stick these two things together. And then I'm going to use, it needs to be quote, a quote, and then concatenate. Rand between 1 and 100. And close that out. And Mia. Okay, so if we look down here, Mia is, where is she here? Mia's A58. So what it did when I came up here is it did A, concatenate with, picked a random number between 1 and 100, picked 58, and gave me Mia. So if I take this one and I copy this down, and I'll do a few here for the moment. One thing you'll see is it actually recalculated. So it's not Mia anymore, it's Ezra now. And that's something that Excel does with the random functions, every time you use it, it recalculates all the recalculates all the random values. Excel does not have a static random function, so these will change. So now I want to do exactly the same thing for um, last name. So how do I do last name? Well, in this case, I can actually just copy this over pretty much. And instead of A, I'm going to use B and Mendoza. Okay, so I have Luca Mendoza and just copy this down. And now I need a street number. Because the next thing I need to have is a street number. Um, think of what you could just do a random number, but how often do you hear of somebody living at one Main Street? Uh, it happens. It's not real common. So let's actually just do a rand between, and I'm going to pick between 600 and 20,000. Where did I pick those numbers? They just happen to be convenient. And again, I will copy these down. And you see, even when I'm copying in cell J, in column J here, it's changing the random values for H and I also. Okay, well, now I need a street name. Well, conveniently, I have a street name. And I have the function written here. I just need to change from column B to column C here. Now it's 4th Street, West 4th Street. Now I've run into a problem. And that is, I could keep going like this, but I'd wind up with El Paso, California 78572 or something. So what I actually need to do is actually glue the city, state, and zip code together if I want to get these consistent. If I want to keep El Paso with Texas with 79936, I have to put all of those together. So I'm just going to do a concatenate over here. And actually, I'm going to throw another column in here just to make it easier to keep track. So this is just going to be equals, this is going to be D1 plus, or D1 ampersand, quote, comma space, quote. In order to get your formatting in here, it's city, comma, space, state. So it's D1 ampersand, quote, comma, space, quote, ampersand again, E1, ampersand, and between state and zip code is just a space, ampersand again, F1. And why did it do that? Okay, I think I have a space at the beginning there. It's really odd. So it knows it's a formula. Let's just do this. Okay, there we go. So if you're wondering what was going on, uh, it looks like Excel had a different format in there. Just had it in as a text format, and that can happen to you. So as I play through these spreadsheets, as I set up for the videos, um, I may have had a format on that column that said this is a text format, And if you have a text format, it won't do a formula in it. And that's what happened. So, so that's all that was going on here. So now that I have this, now I just need to copy this down. Okay. And now El Paso is going to stay together. This will stay together. This will stay together. And I can come over here and I can actually use the same formula again. Put it in here. But now I will pick column G instead of column C. So now I have Lily lives on 18805 Water Street in Katy, Texas. Uh, let's copy this one down a bit here as well. A few more. And if you're wondering, I could make as many of these as I want. Uh, Something that you might be wondering is, well, what do I do if I need more than that? So let's say that you are working in the medical field and you have to do procedure codes or billing codes, especially if you're training on it. I would use a column of the actual real live procedure codes. Uh, Remember, these are not confidential. These are public records. They're a national standard in the U.S. And just do exactly the same thing. Do the indirect and the RAND between to pick the procedure codes. If you're doing car sales, put your list of cars in and do exactly the same thing. Uh, so that lets you pick most of the stuff. Uh, Another one you might need is birthdays, and you need some random birthdays here. Now, if you saw my videos on date formats, you know that all dates are actually just integers in Excel. Um, so we can just pick a number. So let's do this. Equals rand between January 1st, 1950 and December 31st of, oh, I don't know, 2020. And you get an error. And I have no idea why you're getting this error. It should work. And to give you even more of why this is weird, if the workaround for this, Microsoft will probably fix this at some point. The workaround for this is you put in the two dates, January 1, 1950, and December 31st, 2020. And then over here, instead of having the actual dates in there, you do rand between uh, Q1, sorry, R1. And that gives you a number. And you come back here into the number and format it as a date. And you get a date between those two dates. And then I can just copy this down. And I get a bunch of dates here, all of them between those two initial dates. Now, if you're wondering why you had to do that, I'm wondering it too. Like I said, it's just you have to think it's a bug in Excel, so it'll probably get fixed. Even after it's fixed, the system will still work. So go ahead and use this. Now, that pretty much lets you generate any kind of random data you want. I only generated I don't know, a couple dozen uh, test data cells here. You can make thousands and thousands of them. You can do pretty much any kind of random data you want using this procedure. So that lets you generate huge test files, huge training files, and you really do need huge files when you're doing test or training. Can you imagine teaching somebody how to use a new program and how to do a search when there's 3 records? What's the point? Whereas if you have 300,000 records, okay, now you've got real test data. So before we go on here, if you've learned anything from this video, please do hit the like button and subscribe and hit notify. That really helps. YouTube will see the videos worth watching. It'll spread it to more people, helps the channel grow. That's really important. Also have a Patreon page at patreon.com/data analysis excellence. If you can help out there, that would be great. I'm working on shifting towards early video access for Patreon supporters. And I think that's about all I have for you for today. Uh, Again, hope you learned something from this. Be sure to hit the like button, share this with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for stopping by.